If you run more than one Telegram account, there's a trap waiting for you. The convenient way to manage several accounts, all stacked in one app on one phone, is also the way to lose all of them in a single afternoon. The moment the platform decides one of them is a problem, it follows the links to the others, and they go down together. So let me show you how to keep them genuinely separate, so a problem with one stays with one. I run managed Telegram hosting on dedicated hardware here in Singapore, real handsets on real carrier SIMs, and keeping accounts separated is most of what the job actually is. First, the obvious thing, there are plenty of legitimate reasons to run more than one account. A personal account and a business one. Separate accounts for separate brands or communities. A support account that isn't your private number. This video is about doing that safely, not about abuse. The principles are the same either way, because the platform doesn't care about your reason, it cares about the links. Here's the plan. How Telegram links accounts together in the first place. The 4 dimensions you share without thinking, and what each one reveals. The built-in multi-account feature and why it's a trap if you misuse it. Then the isolation model that actually keeps accounts independent. And finally, how to scale that past 2 or 3 without it becoming a nightmare. Start with how linking works, because the whole strategy depends on understanding it. The platform doesn't need you to tell it 2 accounts are connected. It infers it from shared signals. If 2 accounts log in from the same device, the same IP, the same network at the same times, behaving the same way, the system can reasonably conclude they're operated by the same person or the same tool. Once it has that link, the accounts share fate. If one trips a limit or a ban, the others sitting on the same fingerprint are suddenly under suspicion too. This is why people lose a whole set of accounts at once when they thought only one was at risk. Now the 4 dimensions you share without realizing. First, the device. Same physical phone, same hardware identifiers, same app install. Second, the IP and network. Same home connection, same VPN exit, same proxy. Third, behavior and timing. All your accounts active in the same window, doing similar things because one human is driving all of them. Fourth, the contact graph and content. The same recovery email, the same contacts added across accounts, the same forwarded content, the same group memberships. Each of these is a thread. One thread might not link them. Several together absolutely will. This is where the built-in multi-account feature gets misunderstood. Telegram lets you add several accounts to one app and switch between them. That feature is fine for what it's designed for, a couple of accounts that genuinely belong to one person, like your personal and business numbers, where you don't mind that they're obviously linked. The trap is using it to run accounts you need to be independent. Stacking 10 accounts in one app on one phone gives every one of them the same device fingerprint, the same IP, and the same activity pattern. You've handed the platform a perfect map of which accounts belong together. If your goal is isolation, the multi-account feature is the opposite of what you want. So here's the isolation model, and it's simple to state and harder to do, which is exactly why managed hosting exists. The rule is one account, one device, one IP, one number. Each account should live on its own device, or at least its own clean device identity, connect through its own IP that other accounts don't use, and be registered to its own real phone number. When every account has its own device, its own address, and its own number, there are no shared threads for the platform to follow. A problem with one account stays contained, because nothing connects it to the others. Let me break down each part. The device. Each account needs its own device fingerprint, ideally its own physical handset. Running them as separate app instances on one phone doesn't fully separate them, because the hardware underneath is shared. The IP. Each account needs its own address, not a shared pool where they all exit through the same handful of IPs, and not the same home connection for all of them. This is the hardest part to do at home, because you only have 1 or 2 real connections. The number. Each account on its own real SIM-based number. Not virtual numbers from a service that's already flagged, and not numbers that share a history. The behavior. Vary the timing and activity across accounts so they don't all move in lockstep, because synchronized behavior across accounts is itself a link. Now scaling, because 2 or 3 accounts you can almost manage by hand, but past that it breaks down fast. To run 5 or 10 accounts with real isolation, you need 5 or 10 devices, 5 or 10 clean IPs, and 5 or 10 real numbers, plus the discipline to keep them from ever touching. At home, that's physically impossible. You don't have 10 phones on 10 carrier connections sitting on your desk. This is the exact wall every serious operator hits, and is where people start cutting corners, stacking accounts on shared infrastructure, and then losing the whole set when one falls. There's a subtler scaling trap too, the recovery email and the contact graph. People reuse one recovery email across all their accounts, which directly links them. They add the same contacts to several accounts. They join the same niche groups with all of them. Each of these is a connection you created yourself. Keep recovery emails distinct, keep contact graphs separate, and don't have every account pile into the same handful of communities. Isolation isn't only about device and IP, it's about not leaving identical fingerprints in the content and metadata either. Let me walk through a concrete failure, because the abstract version doesn't scare people enough. Say you run 5 accounts. You're careful, you think, so you give them 5 different numbers. But you run all 5 through the multi-account feature on one phone, on your home Wi-Fi, and you tend to do your Telegram work in the evening. To you, that's 5 separate accounts. To the platform, that's one device, one IP, 5 accounts that are all active in the same 2-hour window every night, doing similar things, sometimes joining the same groups. The 5 numbers are the only thing that differs, and numbers are the weakest link of all because they are easy to acquire in bulk. So when one of those accounts trips a spam filter, the system looks at what else shares its fingerprint, finds the other 4 sitting on the identical device and IP and schedule, and there's your cascade. You didn't lose one account, you lost the cluster because you built a cluster. Now contrast that with genuine isolation. 5 accounts, 5 devices, 5 IPs, 5 numbers, and you deliberately don't have them all active in the same window or piling into the same communities. When one of those trips a filter, the platform looks for what shares its fingerprint and finds nothing. No shared device, no shared address, no synchronized timing, no overlapping contact graph. The problem account stands alone, gets handled alone, and the other 4 never even feel a ripple. Same 5 accounts, completely different blast radius, and the only thing that changed was whether they shared infrastructure. There's a timing detail inside this that operators underestimate. Synchronized behavior is itself a fingerprint, even across otherwise isolated accounts. If you sit down and do the same task on 10 accounts back to back in 20 minutes, that burst of identical activity, all originating from one human session at one moment, is a pattern the system can catch even if the devices and IPs are separate. Real people don't operate 10 accounts in a tight identical sequence, so part of safe multi-account operation is spreading the work out, varying what each account does and when, so they don't move in a visible lockstep. Isolation isn't only about the static fingerprint of device and IP, it's also about not betraying that one operator is driving everything by making them all act in sync. So the whole thing comes down to one word: isolation. Telegram links accounts through shared device, shared IP, shared timing, and shared content. Break every one of those shared threads, and your accounts are genuinely independent. Leave even a couple intact, and they share fate. The convenient setups, all in one app, all on one connection, all on one phone, are convenient precisely because everything is shared, which is why they fail together. One more dimension people overlook entirely: the registration footprint. How and when accounts were created is itself a linkable signal. If you registered 10 accounts in one sitting, on one device, on one connection, on consecutive numbers from the same batch, that shared birth story links them before they've done anything at all. Accounts that were born together, on the same infrastructure, in the same hour, look like a batch because they are one. Real accounts owned by real separate people don't share a creation fingerprint like that. So isolation isn't only about how you operate accounts day to day, it starts at registration. Accounts you need to be independent should ideally be created on separate infrastructure and separate numbers that don't trace back to the same source, not spun up assembly line style and then separated afterward. You can't fully unlink accounts that were born linked. This also reframes what a clean number actually means. A number's history travels with it. If you acquire numbers from a source that's already been used for spam, or that recycles numbers previously attached to banned accounts, you're starting each account with inherited baggage and a shared origin. Real carrier SIMs, each genuinely distinct, don't carry that shared history. The number is the account's identity, and identities that all came from the same questionable well are linked at the root, no matter how carefully you separate everything downstream. Clean, distinct, real numbers are the starting point that makes the rest of the isolation worth doing. This is the problem managed hosting is built to solve, because real isolation at scale is an infrastructure problem, not a discipline problem. Telegram Vault is managed Telegram hosting on dedicated Singapore hardware, where each account lives on its own physical handset, on its own real carrier SIM from Singtel, M1, StarHub, or Vivify, behind its own stable, non-rotating mobile IP. There's no shared device, no shared address, no shared app instance linking your accounts together. Each one is genuinely independent, so a problem with one never cascades to the rest, and you reach all of them through a browser from one place without stacking them on a single fingerprint. If you want that, start at telegramvault.org. Onboarding begins with a real conversation about your setup, not a checkout page, and the code TGYT gets you a discount when you start. If you take one thing from this, let it be that convenience and isolation are opposites here. Every shortcut that makes managing many accounts easier, one app, one phone, one connection, one email, works by sharing something, and every shared thing is a thread that ties the accounts together. The setups that are genuinely safe are the ones that are slightly annoying to run, because the annoyance is the separation doing its job. When something feels too easy across all your accounts at once, that's usually the sound of them being linked. If this saved you from losing a whole set of accounts at once, subscribe, because the next video covers recovering a restricted account responsibly, what actually works, what wastes your time, and when to walk away. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.